Take a look at a European truck. That flat, boxy front. No hood, no long nose. From the outside, it looks like there's barely enough room for a steering wheel and a seat. Now here's what will blow your mind. Inside that tiny-looking box, a human being is living. Not commuting. Not just driving. Living, sleeping every night, cooking hot meals, washing clothes, calling their kids goodnight for weeks, sometimes months, without ever walking through their own front door. And they're doing it in a space of roughly 5 square meters. That's smaller than most people's bathroom. Today, we're climbing up those steps and going inside. How do European truckers sleep when there's no hotel? Where do they shower in the middle of rural Romania? What do they eat for 30 days straight on the road? And what's the one law that a third of drivers are quietly breaking every single weekend? By the end of this video, you'll never look at that flat-nosed Scania or Volvo the same way again. Let's go. First, let's answer the obvious question. Why do European trucks look so different from American ones? If you've ever seen a Peterbilt or a Kenworth, you know the classic American look, that long hood stretching out front, with the engine inside it. European trucks threw that entire design in the bin. And it wasn't a style choice. It was the law. EU regulations kept the total length of a truck and trailer at 18.75 meters, roughly 61.5 feet. And here's the problem. Every meter wasted on the cab is a meter you can't use for cargo. Cargo is money. So European manufacturers had exactly one option: shrink the cab as much as physically possible. Their solution? Take the engine out of the front and shove it directly underneath the driver. No hood, no nose, just a flat wall of glass and steel sitting on top of a massive diesel engine. From the outside, it looks cramped. It looks like a punishment. But climb those steps, open that door, and something unexpected happens. Because the engine sits low under the cab, there's no giant engine tunnel cutting through the middle of the floor, the thing American cabs have to build around. The result is a completely flat floor, wall to wall, and that one design detail changes everything about living inside. Step in, and you'll find a real bed. Not a folding shelf, not a padded board, an actual mattress, up to 1 meter wide and over 2 meters long. There's a built-in fridge humming under the bunk. Power outlets everywhere. Deep overhead storage lockers. Large windows. A ceiling high enough for most drivers to stand up straight and get dressed like a normal human being. And here's the detail that tells you everything. Climate control that runs with the engine completely off. Freezing night in January? Heaters running. Heat wave in July? Cool air all night. No idling. No wasted diesel. Is it a luxury apartment? No, but for a box that looks like a filing cabinet from the outside, it's honestly impressive. Oh, and one more thing. Watch any European trucker climb into their cab, and you'll notice something. The shoes come off. On the steps. Every single time. Because this isn't just a vehicle to them. 5 square meters, but it's their 5 square meters. So here's a question most people never think to ask. Is it actually legal to live in there? And the answer is yes, and also no. And it depends on what day of the week it is. Let me explain, because this is where European trucking gets genuinely strange. Every single truck in Europe carries a device called a tachograph. Think of it as a black box for truckers. It logs every minute of driving, every break, every rest automatically. There's no fooling it, and roadside inspectors can pull the data in seconds. Under EU rules, the daily limit is strict, a maximum of 9 hours behind the wheel. After that, the driver must stop and rest for at least 11 hours. And that daily rest? Completely legal in the cab. Park the truck. Close the curtains. Done. That's the standard routine. Night after night, all across the continent. But then the weekend arrives. And this is the part that shocks people. Once every week, drivers are required to take one long, uninterrupted rest of full 45 hours. And under U law, spending those 45 hours sleeping in the cab is illegal. Not frowned upon. Illegal. The law says the employer must either get the driver home for the weekend or pay for a proper hotel, a real bed, a real bathroom at the company's expense. Sounds great on paper, right? Now here's the reality. Getting a driver home from a truck stop in the middle of Spain when they live in Poland? Complicated. Finding and paying for hotels along random freight routes every weekend? Expensive. And enforcement varies wildly from country to country. So what actually happens? Thousands of drivers simply park up on Friday night, pull the curtains shut, and spend the entire weekend in the cab anyway. During one enforcement blitz in Sweden, inspectors found that more than 1 out of every 3 trucks they checked was violating this exact rule. It might be the most widely ignored law in all of European transport. Everyone knows it. Nobody talks about it. And to be fair, on the nights drivers do sleep in the cab, the setup works. Blackout curtains sealing out every headlight, serious noise insulation, an auxiliary heater keeping the bunk at a steady temperature. Whether it's a mild evening in the south of France or a brutal freezing night at a truck stop in Romania, home isn't a house for these drivers. Home is a parking lot somewhere along the route. Curtains closed, engine off, for weeks at a time. All right, now we need to talk about the part of this lifestyle that nobody likes to bring up. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about that clever little cab. There's no toilet in it. And there's no shower. None. For someone living in that box for 3 or 4 weeks straight, that creates a set of daily problems that most of us have never once had to think about. Let's start with showers. Across Europe, the big truck stops offer paid shower facilities. The system is simple. Pull in, pay somewhere between 5 and 10 euros, and you get a private cubicle with hot water for a set amount of time. Now, in Western Europe along the major freight corridors through Germany, the Netherlands, France, Belgium, these facilities are generally solid. Clean, modern, functional, not a spa, but perfectly decent. But drive east, and the story changes fast. In parts of Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, the quality becomes a lottery. Cold metal cubicles, lukewarm water, shared washrooms with zero privacy. That's why experienced drivers on Eastern routes carry something more valuable than money: knowledge. They know exactly which stops are worth pulling into and which ones to skip, and entire trips get planned around that intel. And on the nights when there's simply no decent facility nearby, you don't shower. That's it. That's the answer. Some drivers go several days between showers, not because they're lazy, but because of pure geography. You park where the law allows, where there's space, where it's safe. And sometimes that spot has nothing but gravel and darkness for miles. Now the toilet situation. Daytime is easy enough. Petrol stations, rest areas, truck stops. But nighttime is a completely different story. Picture it. It's 2 in the morning. The driver wakes up needing the toilet. There's no bathroom 3 steps away like at home. So they get dressed, climb down from the cab into whatever the weather is doing, rain, snow, -10 degrees, and walk through dark rows of parked trucks to reach the facilities, if there are any. This isn't a rare inconvenience. This is every night. This is routine. Which is why plenty of drivers keep a portable camping toilet stashed in the cab. Glamorous? Absolutely not. Practical at 3 m in a Polish winter? 100%. And laundry? A coin-operated washing machine at a truck stop if you're lucky. Or clothes washed in a sink and hung up to dry inside the cab overnight, swaying gently above the bed. 5 square meters. Weeks from home. And somehow, they make it all work. Now let's talk about food. Because this might be the biggest logistics challenge of all. A European long-haul driver can be away from home for 2, 3, even 4 weeks. Do the math, that's up to 90 meals, all eaten on the road. Not at restaurants. Not at a kitchen table. In 5 square meters parked beside a motorway somewhere in Central Europe. The stereotype says truckers survive on petrol station sandwiches and fast food. And sure, some do. But a growing army of drivers has gone a completely different direction. They cook. Properly. A portable induction cooktop plugged in next to the bunk. A compact microwave. Increasingly, an air fryer wedged into a storage locker. And on warm evenings, some drivers set up a small gas burner right outside the truck, cooking dinner next to the rig, as the sun goes down over some motorway surfaces in Austria. Why go through all that effort? 2 reasons, and the second one is alarming. Reason 1. Money. Eating at truck stop restaurants every single day burns through a driver's wages at frightening speed. Cooking your own food cuts that cost massively. Reason 2. Health. A study of more than 400 European long-haul drivers produced a shocking result. Only 24% had a healthy body weight. 46% were overweight. 30% were obese. 3 out of every 4 drivers. The causes are baked into the job: endless sitting, irregular meal times, and greasy convenience food at every stop. So the smart drivers plan like military quartermasters. Most leave home on a Sunday, the one day when shops across much of Europe are closed. So everything gets prepped in advance. Containers of homemade stew from the wife's kitchen. Bags of fruit, bread. Enough real food to survive the first few days. After that, it's all about the route. A driver running from the Netherlands into Germany has access to big, well-stocked motorway services the whole way. But a driver spending 3 days deep in rural Romania? He's living out of whatever's left in that little fridge under the bunk. Every single day out here is its own small logistics operation. And food is right at the center of it. So now you've got the full picture. The clever cab, the bed, the cooking, the paid showers, the dark parking lots at 2 am. But there's one thing we haven't talked about. And every veteran driver will tell you it's the hardest part of the entire job. The silence. When the engine shuts off and the curtains close, it's just you. One person, 5 square meters, hundreds of kilometers from everyone you love. The numbers don't lie. Nearly 28% of truck drivers report suffering from loneliness. That's more than 1 in 4. Around 27% report depression. You miss your kid's birthday because you're parked at a rest stop in Germany. You video call home at 8 in the evening. See the family for 20 minutes. And by 9, the curtains are shut and you're alone again until sunrise. And yet, and this is the part that gets me, talk to drivers who've lived this life for 10, 15, 20 years. And almost none of them want to quit. They'll tell you about the freedom. The simplicity of a life where everything you own fits within arm's reach. A sunrise breaking over the Alps. The Croatian coastline at 6 in the morning with an empty road ahead. These drivers witness a version of Europe that tourists will never ever see. And slowly that tiny organized box stops feeling like a vehicle. It becomes familiar. It becomes theirs. It becomes home. So the next time a truck pulls up beside you on the motorway, that flat-fronted Scania, that Volvo, that daft, take 1 second and think about what's really happening behind the windshield. Someone in there is crossing an entire continent. Tonight, they'll park up in the dark, cook themselves dinner, pull the curtains, and fall asleep in a space smaller than your bathroom. And tomorrow morning, before you're even awake, they'll be rolling again. Now I want to hear from you. If you drive on Europe's highways, what's the one thing you wish ordinary people understood about this life? And if you've never touched a truck in your life, be honest with me. Could you do it? Weeks away from home? 5 square meters? Somewhere in Europe? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If you learned something today, hit that like button and subscribe, because there's a lot more coming from the world of trucking. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you down the road.